11, 10, 9. We have ignition sequence start. The engines are on. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit. We have liftoff. Liftoff at 7:51 a.m.
Von Braun had been the V-2's chief architect, the man who sold it to Hitler. Now victory gave Americans the valued prize, and 100 missiles were shipped west from under the noses of Russian guards in the eastern occupied zone. Back home with their spoils of war and 120 of the German rocket engineers, the Americans reassembled V-2s and put their own tiny rocket on top for high-altitude shots from a site in New Mexico. It was a proving ground for the machine and the men. Von Braun urged a drive for large-scale rockets and built missiles for the Army as a route for getting the real tools for space travel. Racing to maintain its lead, Russia surged along the road to a man in space with tests on dogs, which proved animals could withstand stresses of acceleration. Man's best friend became the pioneer for Soviet cosmonauts in space. Laika was to be the first dog in orbit. While Russia sent her cosmonaut around the world, America put a chimpanzee or two into orbit. Ham and Sam got wide publicity for their pioneering duties. The American chimpanauts performed well and proved Mercury would carry astronauts for several orbits of the Earth. There were no limits to the variety of training which eliminated aspiring cosmonauts. One man, Yuri Gagarin, stood out above the rest. Selected to be the first man in space, Gagarin was not the only cosmonaut to have the right stuff, but he led the group. American astronauts trained repeatedly to fly their capsules, special machines giving them a taste for what life would be like in a tumbling spacecraft. The centrifuge built up their resistance to acceleration, but it was in handling potential problems aboard an orbiting capsule that best used the piloting skills acquired through their years of flying. Here they learned to delicately control their spacecraft. April 1961, and the world's first spaceman was dressed for liftoff. His rocket groomed by engineers who for days had been preparing systems and equipment that would carry him into space. At the launch pad, the giant rocket was fueled to blaze new pages in the history books of Earth. On a stone ledge above Red Square, Russian politicians seized the event and put Gagarin's epic achievements into the vanguard of Soviet propaganda. America was ready for its first manned flight. It would be only a 15-minute ballistic shot, straight up and down, but the chosen astronaut, Alan Shepard, would be in space for several minutes.
All right, liftoff and the clock has started. Yes, sir, reading you loud and clear. This is Freedom 7. The fuel is go, 1.2 G. Cabin at 14 PSI. Oxygen is go.
Less than 16 minutes after launch, Shepard was safely back. This was the big one for America. Everything depended on Glenn's flight. The man was ready. It was time to fly. 80,000 miles and nearly 5 hours later, Glenn was back, having proved beyond doubt that US spacemen were cutting into the lead held by Russia.